right. Hi, welcome to our panel. Have some chill. Why great AI-powered experiences don't really feel like AI. We're going to cover a lot of ground, all relating back to how you can utilize artificial intelligence and machine learning to create really powerful one-on-one connections with your users on an individual level at scale. My name is Angelina Bethany. I am your moderator for today. I'm also a developer in the Quartz Bot Studio. Quartz is your digital guide to the global economy. And in the Bot Studio, we utilize natural language processing and machine learning to create narrative experiences for our users, other journalists, and our clients. We have an incredible lineup of panelists today, and I'm going to ask that you all introduce yourselves. If you just say your name, where you work, and a little bit about why this is such a significant topic to you. And we're going to start with Ramsey and work our way back.
Sure, yeah. Ramsey Kale, I'm the marketing group product manager at Overstock.com. And really, for us, AI and ML is critically important since we have such a large audience of customers, and finding ways to have those, really interesting, magical moments with those customers is not something that comes easy. So we need technology to help back that up.
Yeah, I agree. At Grubhub, we have millions of customers, and in order for us to give them the best possible experience, automation is one thing, but also making that automation more relevant requires a lot of machine learning and artificial intelligence techniques. Plus, it's a very interesting topic as well.
I'm Boris Raveshkis. My background is in computational neuroscience, and now I'm a product manager here at Braze, and I'm responsible for the machine learning and AI features that we can bring to bear for our customers.
And my name is Ori Shashua. I'm co-founder and VP product of Nira. Nira enables brands to act upon moments in the lives of the people they serve. And we basically believe in humanizing interaction. My background goes back to human-device, digital interaction between people and devices in domains such as medical devices and IoT.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so we're going to dive right in. This first question is actually for Ori and Ramsey. What is artificial intelligence and machine learning, and what role does it play when it comes to customer strategies?
So AI had traditionally been used for years in order to compute and process large amounts of data that we have at scale. The thing is that AI can also be used to go beyond the data that we have and to uncover the human factor. I mean, in the end, we are not engaging with mobile devices. We are engaging with people. And real-world data, sensory data, is out there, but in its raw form, it's not usable. And so Nira leverages AI, which is a tool and a buzzword, but it is a tool in order for us to allow brands to elevate the raw data and turn it into an actionable insight that their product can act upon, engage a human in a way that is emotionally intelligent.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And I, kind of an interesting show of hands, how many people have worked in retail before? Any type of yeah. So essentially what we're trying to do is take a digital experience and turn that into an understanding that's very much like a physical one. We don't get to be in the room with the customer. We don't get to see their facial expressions. We don't get to see, where their eyes are and kind of their mood. But what we can do is pick up on those digital cues, those digital signals, and try and turn that into something like buying signals, turn that into something that educates that experience that we have with the customer. So.
Cool. Does anybody else want to add anything? Or?
I would like to mention, actually, there's a perception that I find we often have to push back against, which is this picture of AI as this disembodied sentience in a machine that's sort of on its own and contemplating whether or not to destroy us all. And that creates this impression that you can appeal to it with questions in this abstract way, but of course it's nothing like that. So it's something I like to always just sort of caveat, that it's not a sort of broad tool in that way. It's not what is sometimes called general AI. You can't treat it like an individual or like an autonomous person, but rather you have to treat, particularly in the marketing space, it as a tool, a specific tool for a specific kind of problem.
People often tell me that Nira is the most friendly version of AI that they have met. Because it's very intuitive. I mean, Nira helps, let's say, my running application to not treat me as a non-engaged user, but know that I'm a struggling runner. And because my persona is an avid runner, workaholic, sleep-deprived, frequent traveler. And this is basically taking AI, which is a tool, and allowing another technology or another product to close the loop and engage with me in an intelligent way. And
That's right. So like AI, machine learning, a lot of these, with traditional business analytics, right, you're describing what happened. AI allows you to look for patterns and maybe make predictions in the future. But where you really make bank is when you combine that with people who take those predictions and turn it into actions. So, but like the AI by itself is just looking for patterns and trying to be able to make predictions based on those historic patterns.
Awesome. Okay, so this question is for Boris and Ori. When should a company start thinking about investing in these tools, especially in connection with their customer engagement strategies?
So the short answer is yesterday. The situation today in the market, in the mobile market, is that there is 6% success in open rates of push notifications. There is about 1% conversion and call to actions that are basically ending in success to a push notification. That means that something is broken in the way products interact with people. Something does not make a lot of sense. And if AI, or specifically human-centric AI, and going beyond the phone, understanding the situation in which I'm currently engaging in, can solve that situation, then this is what leads to low retention rates. This is what leads to churn. This is what leads people to notification fatigue and disconnecting or closing the access to push notifications. And those are not problems of tomorrow. We should all stop treating AI as something futuristic. AI can solve the problems that all of you guys have today. And I believe that the time is now.
A fairly simple rule of thumb I would use is basically, sort of as Wei Jian mentioned, it's good for, AI itself is good for finding patterns and extracting patterns from data. So as soon as the data you're talking about is of a quantity that is too large for a human or even a team of humans to reasonably be expected to be able to analyze and understand, that's when you need to start to leverage algorithms to extract and recognize those patterns. So as soon as you know or expect to cross that pretty simple threshold or that benchmark, that's when you need to start thinking about it, or have been thinking about it in many cases.
And in fact, I think it's even deeper than that. Like AI, machine learning, I think it's part of a whole like mindset that people could have to think in terms of like regular processes, repeatable processes, and also to think in terms of metrics. If you create a culture where you're metrics driven and you're process driven, then you could start like applying automation, and then you could actually, in the future, set yourself up for some sort of AI machine that you could actually say, hey, you know what, is this machine doing what we want it to do or not doing what we want it to do? If your camera turns on in the middle of the night, you know, and like starts staring at you, probably your AI is not doing something right. But you know, if you're getting like that right alert at the right particular time, and you see this like in your A/B testing, then your AI is probably doing the right thing.
And I agree with that. It comes back to that crawl, walk, run mentality, right? Like you don't go straight from a shovel to a backhoe. Like you need some training to make sure that you're not going to cause mass damage with what you're trying to do. Mm-hmm. So even whenever it comes to AI, I think it's more of a mindset. And then the tools that you use are determined by the outcomes that you're looking for. It's really making sure you're using the right tool for the job.
Awesome. Okay, great. So this question is directed for Ramsey and Wei Jian. how can brands ensure that their use of these tools is supporting a more responsive, relevant, and human-like experience? So for instance, at Quartz, we put a lot of thought into our guardrails, which are basically our error messages, letting people know that we don't have a response for their input, but making sure that it's still within the voice of the brand to keep it within like a human-like experience. What kinds of things are y'all doing in your companies to do this?
So for us, like it takes a village, I think, and it also takes the AI engineer, the machine learning engineer, to himself or herself be human-centered. It's like a very junior computer scientist or data scientist would be very metrics-driven, like in terms of like root mean square error or something. The next level of evolution, I think, for that person is to be money-driven or business performance-driven. But then the highest level of evolution is to be really empathetic with the actual customer. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've gone through this whole evolution, fighting like with internal teams and so forth about what I thought was right. But I really make an effort now to talk with our brand team, and the rest of the marketing org to make sure that the tone is right. So, for example, somebody on our team raised the flag and said, "Hey, you know what? There's flooding going on in the southeast. Let's shut off our weather-based emails and not say, hey, guess what? It's raining outside. Order Grubhub." And we took that and then we turned it into an action, and I think a lot of people are very appreciative of it. Will that show up in any business metric? No, but we just think it was the right thing to do to set the right tone. And there are all sorts of cases of where we've done it the right way, I think, and where we've done it maybe the incorrect way, but we've learned from it. So, just it takes a village, and it takes somebody who really tries to listen to people and have a team that's very, very encouraged to suggest ideas.
Yeah, and I like the idea that it kind of plays off what the golden rule, right? Like, do unto others as you have them do unto you. I don't think anyone in this room wants to walk into a store and necessarily get a message from a competitor saying, "Hey, I noticed you're in that store. You want to buy something from us?" I mean, there's ways to do that are creative. There's ways to do that avoid that kind of uncanny valley, that provide users with an experience, an enriching experience that they value, and that's kind of the game we have to play, right? Is that there's a line there, and if we cross that line, our customers will let us know that we've crossed it, because they'll stop being our customers. So we always want to make sure that we're, from your perspective, making sure we're customer aware, right? Doing things that, as a consumer, I would see value in, things that I would want to experience. Mm-hmm. One of them, I mean, don't send me a message about ordering takeout if the guy's going to have to get a boat to get it to my house. Right. So.
As long as brands, in a way, focus on the phone and phone data, if we're looking at where is the phone, and we think that, hey, this is contextual, well, it's not. I'm at home, can be at home awake, running on the treadmill, about to go to sleep, busy, in a hurry to leave. Those are situations. This is looking at the person. And I think that we see brands that suddenly get access to this human-centric data, and from a place in which they are counting how many seconds passed since the moment I opened the app in order to decide whether to pop up the question or not, they start looking at data such as human availability. Is the user available? What is his current mindset? In order to generate a queue and fire the same question. And so this is something that we see that's happening in the last year.
Yeah, a huge part of all of this is that context, as has been mentioned, is not something that AI deals with well unless you explicitly provided the data and the ability to do so. So like in the case of the flooding, unless that was something you had planned for ahead of time, you can't expect these algorithms to incorporate that knowledge contextually or to generalize the decisions it makes to those scenarios. So you really do need, like, as you mentioned, guardrails. You need humans to be sort of serving the function of these guardrails, ultimately, because so far, anyway, the algorithms can't account for these sorts of situations that we don't anticipate when we're constructing them.
And you know what, Wei Jen, I believe that a human spotted that, right?
Yep, yep.
And this is not scalable. Let's say that you would have sent that interaction. AI can learn at large scale from the way people react. So for example, at Neura, we continuously receive incoming reactions of how people react to a certain interaction. WeiGen would see that many people are rejecting that notification. And AI would also be able to stop that interaction from happening.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Ori and WeiGen, going to have some real talk. Where do you see marketing, growth, and engagement teams kind of falling short when it comes to taking advantage of these tools?
So the biggest gap is today visibility to the human they engage with. Everyone sees phone-centric events, web-generated events, and there is almost zero visibility to me, my mindset. And what do I need right now? And brands that go beyond the phone and start looking at people start uncovering real-time need. So I'm a morning commuter. I'm also a business traveler and a workaholic. I needed my ride-sharing app to know that I woke up this morning and say, hey, a car can wait for you downstairs in 40 minutes. That's intuitive. It comes right on time. If it would pop up 5 minutes after I'm already in the Uber, it wouldn't make sense. It would cause notification fatigue. And so if without visibility to human availability, to human need in the real world, then engagement will never mature and become a pleasant experience that we react positively to.
So from my perspective, when I think about the integration of the work I do with like brand and marketing teams, you could kind of look at the textbooks or the books that I'm reading right now. A lot of it is like marketing focused. I mean, alternatively, I could read more books about statistics or machine learning or so forth, which I try to make time for as well. But what I'm trying to do is try to find ways to take my area of expertise and then improve the functioning of the pre-existing marketing team. I think it's incumbent on the mature data scientists to do that. So the things I do, for example, is try to like create information flow where, whenever I talk with a marketing, a brand or creative person, like I try to get them to fall under a certain structure and say, all right, you came up with this subject line or this graphic. What is your hypothesis? Then it becomes hypothesis testing, what we're doing when we're actually sending out this campaign. And then the hypothesis is either true or false. We analyze the results, and then we report back to our results to that group, and then hopefully we could just create a virtuous cycle where everyone just keeps on learning and learning and learning from this. It's for the people who do what we do, it's not that new. Companies like Stitch Fix do this, Netflix does this, all the Lix's companies, well, I'm sure do this, and all the companies do this, I'm sure. But yeah, it's building that type of relationship with the other non-technical orgs.
I just renewed my insurance plan, my home insurance. The way there was tedious. It took them 2 weeks to find me available. That means that they called me during meetings. They sent me pop-ups in the middle of my run. After 2 weeks, I ended up calling them in order to make it happen. Ask yourselves, as product owners, how many push notifications are people receiving when they're driving or in the supermarket, when they run or when they sleep? Billions. That's kind of the first realization that happens to a brand when they start using Neura is, so 80% is doesn't have even a chance to succeed.
Oh, by the way, one other thing that I want to ask people who do marketing campaigns to do is just, it kind of alludes to like this process thing that I mentioned before and metrics. Like, if you're talking with the engineering team, if you can think like in terms of like, not just one-offs, like one-off marketing campaigns, but something we can generalize and then do like again and again. So that, like say software engineers can actually build something once and use it forever. That's when you get the really big bang for the buck. For example, I was talking with these marketing folks and they're like, hey, let's do something for St. Patrick's Day. Let's do something for 4th of July. Let's do something for like the Oscars, right? Great food holidays. I was like, you know what? Let's just do a holiday calendar and then have a campaign where we are just build one infrastructure and just swap out different holidays based on that infrastructure. So in that particular case, you're really maximizing bang for the buck, I think. And then you have like a repeatable system that you can measure the performance of and just make better and better regularly.
As a developer, I highly endorse that idea. Did you have something you wanted to?
I would emphasize the process piece that Wei Jin mentioned. It almost doesn't matter what algorithms you're using if the process, the scientific process underlying them and the data-driven process underlying them isn't performed or even attempted correctly, then it almost, it doesn't really matter what predictions you generate because you're not going to be evaluating the results and improving them with time. So I would just, re-emphasize that the sort of process underlying the use of any algorithm is really key.
One thing I think we want to be kind of careful with those, like from a marketing perspective, there are things like St. Patty's Day or things that we want to focus on, and we need to build that bridge where we're looking at the individual outcomes and then building tools that are extensible enough that we can handle multiple processes, handle multiple. To your point, like building a holiday calendar, right? Building something that serves more than one tenant with what you're trying to do. And I think that's really important from an engineering standpoint, is making sure that the tools that are built are extensible, that they're not single tenant, single use. And that is something I do see a tendency towards in certain, surprisingly not ours, but in some other marketing orgs that I've seen, where it's like, okay, the email team has this, they have this data scientist, they have this algorithm. The app team has this, they have this data scientist, they have this algorithm. And ultimately what you end up doing in that case is creating a very differentiated and disparate experience for your users. And it does not end well. Ultimately, your app users might get a better experience than your email users, or vice versa. So.
Awesome. So we are running really low on time. If you could all each take like 10 seconds and summarize one thing that you hope everybody walks away with today.
Don't drown in data. Make sure that you're collecting data and that you're making use of that data, but don't necessarily sweat the amount of data that you're collecting.
Process, metrics, and very growth-oriented people. I think those things will lead to success. Oh, and simplicity. Start simple.
I would echo that. Use data in a hypothesis-driven way and be scientific, and then layer algorithms on top of that.
And I would say, be human. You're engaging and communicating with people. Those people have needs. Some of those needs can be provided by your brand. Those people have moments of availability, but times in which they are busy. Consider them. Find the data that allows you to understand each and every single individual human on your system. Don't treat them as a segment. Each and every one of them is a segment. And engage with them in an emotionally intelligent way.
And I would even go off Ori's point and say, include your entire company in these conversations, because there's so many different people in your company. You're bound to have audience that are like somebody that's already there. And by keeping everybody in mind, you will have something that is human-like, or at least not uncanny valley human-like, but that is cognizant of the fact that people have lives outside of work or buying food or marketing. Awesome. So we are just about out of time. I want to thank all of our panelists again for being here and for sharing all of your insights. And thank you all for being here and listening in. I think this was really great.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Good job.
Good meet you.
Thanks.